my dad got pulled up to the front. My mother got a Ford Foundation fellowship to go to the Harvard School of Public Health. And so both the kids, me and my 3-year younger sister, who unfortunately no more, were sent to boarding schools. I went to the Doon School in Dehradun, she went to Tara Hall in Simla. When my mom came back 15 odd months later, they obviously couldn't afford 2 kids in a boarding. I was close to my senior Cambridge, so my sister got pulled to a day school in Delhi. From there, then I went to IIT Kharagpur. I wanted to do electronics, and the reason I wanted to do electronics was when my mother had come back from the US, she had got a Grundig TK20 spool tape recorder that my dad used to use to listen to KL Sehgal songs. One summer holiday, I thought, let me open it up and put it back. It didn't work. I mean, maar to jo padi, but I promised myself at that time that one day I will be an electronics engineer and be able to make these things work. So when I applied to IIT, there were 5 IITs at that time, all of them had electrical engineering with light current and heavy current. Kharagpur had a different department of electrical engineering and a different department of electronics and electrical communication engineering. So my assumption was that it obviously is different. So let me go and, do my engineering at Kharagpur, much against my grandmother's wishes, who felt that someone who stays in a hostel for 9 years will lose his connection to the family. But yeah, those were great days at Kharagpur. When I left Kharagpur, like everyone else, I was planning to go abroad. In fact, a little bit of trivia. When I did my electronics, computers was an option, which I didn't take. I took control systems because I was trying to go do my PhD from Berkeley or Stanford and work with NASA on satellite control. I thought I had my life planned out. What never really works that way. So what ended up happening was I'd also decided who I wanted to get married to. And I always claimed that that's how I became an entrepreneur. Because you take the biggest decision of life at the age of 19. So she was the sister of a friend of mine who was in IIT with me. So when I talked to her, first I told her that it'll take me 7 years, get a PhD, and then come back. And she said, she may not be able to wait, pressure from the family and all that stuff. So I talked to her father. And he said, "You're mad. I can't get my daughter married to someone who doesn't have a confirmed job." So I took a job and I thought I'll get confirmed after 1 year, I'll get married, and then I'll go to the US. And Stanford and all kept the admission open. They said, "You'll have to reapply for it." My GRE score was okay, so I wasn't too worried about that. What happened was DCM decided to get into electronics. And after my 1 year training as a senior management trainee, the executive director called me to his office and said, "Look, I must have been one of the few electronics engineers in the company at that time, because they were textile, food, rayon tire cord, chemical, fertilizer conglomerate. I was told that either you're going to head R&D and production or you're going to head sales and marketing, depending on who we can find." So they found a general manager for production from Indian telephone industries, IT, Bangalore. So I ended up looking at the field, sales, marketing, maintenance. Now, 1 year out of college, you're given national responsibility in the 4th largest company in the country. Where it's like a startup. You're setting it up as part of textile division. I thought, let me do this for a few years and see what happens. Then one thing led to the other. Ultimately, we picked up a large market share. We did a lot of interesting things on calculators, differentiated ourselves. And then we wanted to get into computers because microprocessors were just coming out. But there was an act, India was a socialist country, and we had an act called the Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act that you may not have heard of. But basically, large companies weren't allowed to grow, get into new areas. They were all reserved for state and public sector. And so DCM in their wisdom decided, and one thing I got to tell you, when you work in a large company, the job of their legal department is to tell you how you can't do things, not to tell you how you can do things. And that's exactly what happened in DCM. So 6 of us decided to leave and start something on our own. No business plan, no money, no product. We just thought we knew the market, and we really felt microprocessors were going to change the world. and IBM and ICL were selling, in our view, junk technology, and we thought people would line up to buy this new technology. Of course, a lot of that didn't come out, but we were able to maneuver through that whole thing and make HCL what it is today. I left HCL when I was turning 50. I didn't see my children grow up, unfortunately, because I was on the road 25 days a month. I remember my wife telling me on my 10th wedding anniversary, that's actually a third wedding anniversary by the number of days I've stayed at home. So, I have that problem now. I've got grandkids, and my children tell me all the time, but you never did that with me. And I have to tell them, what don't you understand about the word grand? But, but yeah, so that's, it's a pretty tough life. You have to compromise on a lot of things when you want to do stuff. People don't see that when they get into, if you really want to build an organization, be successful. Because ultimately, once the company grows to a certain point, 5, 10 million, somewhere there, 80% of your work is managing people. It's not, your own people, because you've got to motivate them, you've got to make sure that they are happy, they're doing what they're doing, they're focused on what they're supposed to do, all that stuff. So, if you ever decide to get into that, learn how to manage people. If you've got a set of friends and everyone wants to do a different thing, if most of the time they do the thing that you want them to do nicely without having a fight, then you've got the skills required to manage people. Because you've got to take everyone along with you happily. That's the important thing. So I'll stop there. I left HCL. We ended up starting another company, a different model, TechSpan. We merged with James Martin and Company. It became Headstrong. We grew it to 220 million, focused on capital markets, investment banks, basically. Sold it for 550 million in 2011 to Genpact. And I've been working with startups in health, mainly in healthcare, technology, healthcare, and education. But basically technology startups. But that's really the only thing I understand. Happy to answer any questions. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, but we sit. Then you have to be a mic.
Good evening, everyone. I trust you are thoroughly enjoying this insightful journey we have embarked upon so far. A heartfelt thank you to our esteemed guests and the brilliant minds that fill this auditorium. I'm Meg Gopani, and I extend a warm welcome to an evening poised to illuminate our understanding and ignite the flames of inspiration. We have just been privileged to hear about the remarkable journey of the visionary Arjun Malhotra sir, a pioneer in his industry. But the thrills don't stop there. Today, we have something special in store for you, a one-of-a-kind podcast session in which we will dive deeper into the minds of the notable characters who have made lasting impacts in their respective fields. Let us move on this enlightening discussion without further ado. Mr. Indrajit Chatejee and Mr. Digvijay Choudhari, both intellectual powerhouses, join us to accompany Mr. Malhotra. This session promises to delve into the depths of wisdom and creativity. I would like to ask questions to Mr. Arjun Malhotra, sir. What is the best way to gain academic knowledge while cherishing the fun moments in our college life?
You're talking about what people talk about is work-life balance. You're talking about fun life, study balance in college. I don't know if there's an answer. I haven't found it at least. But you've got to set some norms. So let me put it this way. What I did, and I'll give you when I joined IIT Kharagpur, I was fifth on the JEE exam merit list of the people who went to IIT Kharagpur. So I had a merit scholarship, which I didn't tell my parents, so I was getting a lot of money. But, what happened is in my first year, I had to struggle. Initially, I didn't do well, but I managed to get B16 on the institute merit list, so I got my merit scholarship. I promised myself at that time that I will try and end up at the same position in the institute as which I joined. At least that position. So I put in the amount of work required to get to that point. And I used to play games, I took part in debates, I acted in plays, so you did but you have to balance your life. And this is a really important place where if you can balance it, you'll find being able to do it later in life becomes much easier. In fact, try and do it. That's something I should have mentioned. Try and see how you can balance your life. Set your goals and see how you can work towards your goal and balance your life. And sometimes, if you're slipping academically, give up something to go there. If you're doing too well academically, relax a little and do the other stuff that you want to do. But set your goals. Then they're your goals. You don't have to justify it to anyone else. Your parents might think different, but as long as you set your goals and you can achieve them, that's the best way to go through life. Because you'll always be setting goals that you want, not that someone else wants.
That's a very good perspective, sir. Thank you. Next question. What is your point of view on the growing world of AI/ML?
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat stuff I said when I talked to the faculty, and my apologies to whoever's here from that group. But, I come from a time when computers were just coming out in any kind of volume. You didn't have to have big rooms with special flooring and special dust control and all that stuff. So, and at that time, the unions were really against computers because everyone thought jobs will go away, right? Now look back at from then to today, that without computers, there are really no jobs in a way. You have to know how to use Excel, Word, whatever application, and then you can work in a job, right? I see AI the same way. I see AI as something that you will have to learn how to use through prompt engineering or whatever. You'll have to learn how to ask it questions so it gives you the data or the answer that you're looking for, right? And that's not an easy task because you're not talking to a human being. Even today, if I use ChatGPT, I have to go through 2 or 3 cycles before I get the answer I really want, right? We've given it a word, it's called prompt engineering. I guess all of you will at some stage have to learn a little bit about prompt engineering, and different platforms will be a little different in how you do it. But I think AI is going to create a lot more jobs. But the jobs are for people who know how to use those AI platforms, right? So like you learned Excel or Word or whatever, you'll have to learn whatever the AI platform, the popular ones come up, and be able to use them. So I don't think you need to worry. Yes, there will be some kinks. Things might go down a little, come up. Right now, everyone thinks AI is going to save them labor costs, and so a lot of people are working towards it. Not many people have been successful. Yes, there's robotic process automation, which is AI-based, is replacing some people, but it's replacing people in repetitive and manual and low-end jobs. It's not replacing people in doing analytics and all that stuff. So I don't think you need to worry too much. You need to worry about, yes, you've got to learn how to use AI, very much like you learned how to use computers or PCs basically. And that's really awesome, in my view.
Thank you, sir. What do you think? Is starting a startup easier now with more available skills, or was easier about 30 years ago with fewer regulations from authorities and less competition in the market?
No, I think it's not. Sorry, I think it is easier to do a startup now, but much more difficult to make it grow. When we did ACL, there wasn't too much competition. We could make mistakes, stumble, get up, and keep running. Today, you may not have that liberty, number one. Number two, today when you do something, there are 20 other people who are doing it in some form or the other. And so you really got to keep running. You just don't have the time to sit down and say, I'll take it easy, or I'll give me another week, 10 days, a month, whatever, to do things. So I think on the other side, today you've got funding that's available. You've got people who want to become or work in startups, people who want to be entrepreneurs. You've got that environment, that ecosystem exists today, which it didn't exist in our time. So, there are pros and cons on both. I would think it's easier today to do a startup, more difficult to get it to grow.
Now I would like to ask questions to Mr. Digvijay Choudhary, sir. How did the idea behind the Sober Center of Excellence originate?
So, what like Arjun was saying, it's all about finding problems to solve. Where he also used at the end of his talk that that is the thing I know to do. So similarly, because of the past experiences I had both in the professional world, uh, in my education, as well as with the art of living, handling projects of social impact and setting up, working with volunteers and running such institution, I realized that what I enjoy doing, the kind of problem solving and the kind of impact I want to create, it is all related to solving problems in a sustainable manner and in a business model. So there are many things in society which maybe can't be solved by a business model, but there are also many areas, and that is very empowering. So I like to empower myself. I like to empower people. So if I look at the intersection of all the points, my skills, my interests, need of society, what is available now. So some of you might call it ikigai. You might have seen those four circles. So my own ikigai, if I find, that's what Sobus is about, social business. So that's the way I think I could contribute. What see, we have come to the planet, we have to be doing something, and it's always. I'm also closely associated with art of living, and Shri Ravi Shankar ji, he always says that if you come to the wherever you go, not just planet, wherever you go, if you take more and give back less, that's the definition of a liability. We are no assets and liability. And if you take less and give back more, then you are an asset. And wherever you go and you give back more, you're always welcome. Even in friends also, no? Those who are selfish, who are only taking, do you like them as friends? No. But those who are more giving. So I always like the Sober Center of Excellence, which is the extension of the Sober's philosophy, is can we work with students bright as yourself to be able to solve India's big problems and use entrepreneurship as a lever to do that. You see, once you will get a good job, you'll get educated, and you'll work somewhere. Yeah, you are doing a good service if you are contributing. But now, if you are an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, you might create 2 jobs or 20 jobs or 200 jobs, and that's such an important thing that the nation needs. So, entrepreneurship is also contribution to nation building. So, all of this put together is the aim of the Sober Center of Excellence, and we also set it up here because we find the talent of the students, the orientation of the management, and the ecosystem which is in the surrounding is a good ground for it. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to ask question to Mr. Indrajit Chatejee. One book that has inspired you the most.
Sorry?
One book that has inspired you the most.
I like to see people. Sorry, I'm not a public speaker like others. So basically, we are all connected with people, and that is the philosophical part of it. You must be connected to whatever you believe in. So also, your knowledge, if you distribute to others, then you get more knowledge. That's one thing. If you share, it does not consume you. That's one of the reasons. You go on gathering knowledge, distribute it to all, so that you are, for that, you have to be up to date on. Like when we started college, we started with 8-figure logarithm. That way we used to calculate. Later on, shifted to slide rule. Now, if I ask what is slide rule is, most of the people have never seen it in their life. And that time, that was the technology. We had analog computer in IIT Kharagpur, right? And I had used, even after my IIT thing, I joined one company at the request of my design Professor Dr. G.L. Sinha. He had actually designed brake for Mercedes-Benz and all. He lives on money, but he's so simple. He was still a professor in IIT Kharagpur and teaching us. I'm a mechanical engineer. Those days, that was one of the 4 subjects everybody was after. Now, like Arjun, I could not go to entrepreneurship because it is your mindset and what society you are living in and the background of that one. But what I did in my various jobs, starting with public sector to multinational to various positions in that one, I learned one thing actually, that if you get 1 rupee from the company that you are serving, you should give back 10 rupees to that company so that now they will understand your worth of the thing. So I had fixed responsibility in various positions. So if you live in that one, life is very comfortable. Now I didn't want that one, so I took up, I don't know why, additional responsibility of training 100 graduate engineers to the level of, say, when you take the freshers, any one of you, join an organization, you have to unlearn many things which you studied, frankly speaking. So in that case, so those people, if you bring them up, at par with the industry, that we call a gap between the academia and the industry. Now, I try to bridge in that gap because so that the organization, they don't lose time in training up any freshers that time and spending 6 months to 1 year, then that fellow leaves and all your energy goes off. I mean, the company, literally they lose that time and money and everything there and also knowledge that will had acquired. So I voluntarily started that one, that whoever joining this one, I was also going for campus interview in various places, and IIT and in the Coimbatore Institute of Technology. Not necessarily all will be IITians who take up the job, the blue collar job, you tell and sorry, I am having some problem actually today. I mean, last 6 months, health wise. So maybe sometime you won't be able to get me properly on my pronunciation or it get better. So pardon me for that. Now I got the maximum joy while I am dealing with this pressure and bringing them into the culture of that organization. See what happens to I'm telling you, immense pleasure you get when you find the fellow who worked with you. Today he has become CEO of a company in Atlanta or somebody is in Thailand, and so they come like any professor gets that respect. I used to do that. So they used to call me, he's the knowledge man of this company and this one. But I also to drive about 200 crores of profit we account this thing. My line is different from Arjun. So what I did is not different actually, it's same. I created a lot of entrepreneurs also in the process. That I tell them that why you have come and doing this job, it's against our policy. But when you find somebody brilliant and he's interested in that, you should also inspire them to do it. Now my inspiration was actually Now these people, including one mechanical engineer girl, I should say, today she's a lady and she's a design engineer in Mercedes-Benz electric vehicle. So just imagine, you have kind of, she acknowledges that, not that one, but something has gone to them also for this type of job. So I'm a spiritual person. I sat on the lap of Swami Vivekananda's own brother when I was 4 years old, something like that. So that helped me actually, that inspiration, no? Do good for others. Don't bother about your own self. So if you can do that one, whatever is the resistance or no, you face a lot of troubles as you progress, family, everybody, all of us face, and nobody can say no. But if you are one track minded, I can do it, and for others, that is the objective, you will always succeed in your life, right? And I believed in that one actually. And secondly, to tell them, you must also improve your knowledge, as I told you. So you have to go on learning. We started, I told you the status, that this sliding rule and all this slide rule, etc., etc. But now, if I go back to that one, then those technologies obsoleted, right? So I had to upgrade the knowledge. One of the professors asked me, at that time I could not tell him, maybe I thought
I see, sir, in this wonderful journey, is there any particular book that really inspired you, or which gave you a lot of energy? Any particular book?
Yeah, my inspiration was my design professor. So I took it up. That's why I named him. I think. And you won't believe, after 12 years, I found him in Calcutta airport, sitting there. Then I asked him, where are you going, sir? He could remember my name. After 12 years, he could remember. Because I was this very good student. Like Arjun got 5th rank, I got some 31 or 32 in AIR. But yes, it's not that matters actually. It is how Arjun told very correctly, to retain his position or improve that position, you need knowledge. And if you are singly focused, I have to do that one. So there are a lot of distractions in this world, especially today in this one. So you have to have that in mind. That, yes, I am focused for this. Then nothing can. I was focused for that line. So Arjun will add something to that one.
No, I was just going to say, I thought of a book as the question was asked, and I'll mention it. Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. It is amazing what that seagull tries to achieve. Uh, you know, it's completely based on achievement motivations. It's a thin book. If you can get it, I don't know if it's still in print, but it's probably one of the best books I have ever read. That motivated me. As they say, in college jargon, I got charged when I read that book. And so, do see if you can get it. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Richard Bach. It's a story about a seagull who is different to other seagulls.
Thank you for the insightful answer, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask questions to Arjun Malhotra, sir. Describe your mindset and course of action if you had to initiate a startup today from scratch.
So first of all, I try to I'd go and find people who are smarter than me. I'd go and find people who are smarter than me, because the first thing, according to me, is you've got to get a good team. I'm assuming here that the idea is there and the market does being done, and I'm making that assumption because without that, you're not going to have a startup, right? So first thing is get people who are smart. Second thing is do your proof of concept with your early customers, who normally will come through a contact that you have or contact your family has. Yeah. And then look at how you're going to grow it. Today, in our time, you only did feet on the street. People had to go to different offices. Today, I can do digital marketing, right? I can do, depends on what the product is it a B2C, a B2B? I would do a B2B because I've never done a B2C. So, I would look at who are the clients. I would build a case study on certain solutions that we built for some vertical, whether it's a pharma company or a textile company or whatever. Then go to all of them and talk that language, talk that jargon. So when you go to a doctor, let's say in a hospital, and you talk to him Java and stuff, he has no idea what you're saying. But if you talk to him about whatever his problems are in medical jargon, and you're able to do that, you've got his attention or her attention. So that's how I would do it. Be domain specific, be consultative in the approach, yeah, and make sure that you don't commit something you cannot deliver, because the initial customers are really important. And so any commitment you make, the word of mouth goes around very quickly.
Thank you for your opinion, sir. Is it true that being an alumnus of prestigious institutions like IITs or Harvard Business School gives you a head start or an easier path for your startup idea?
It does. In all fairness, I've got to say that it does, because there was a book, or I think it was a paper published by this professor at Berkeley, Anna Lee Saxenian, which some years ago, which said that every third startup in Silicon Valley had an IIT founder. So, when stuff like that gets around, there's the credibility. If you're from IIT and you say you're doing a new startup, people have the credibility level is different than if you weren't from an IIT. So those are the things that help. If you look at the unicorns, I think IITs are number 3, or maybe they've overtaken Harvard to be number 2 in terms of the number of unicorns that have come from IIT startups. Now, when those statistics go out, it makes a difference. People feel, that you come with the right pedigree, if I use that term, and it does help. So I won't run away and say it doesn't help. It does help, but it's not the most important thing. In fact, today in India, more than 50% of the unicorns are non-IIT startups. So, while globally it might help, in India it's not that important.
Thank you, sir. What trends do you anticipate in the coming years, and how do you prepare the companies you are associated with to adapt to these changes?
That's a tough question, because every market is somewhat different. So you try and look at, like when the pandemic happened, all of a sudden edtech companies, we got inquiries in Magic from Ghana, from Jordan, because they had the digital content that they could, but they didn't know how to distribute it. And so we have a product called Magic Box that does the distribution. And so we got inquiries from all sorts of countries that wanted it. But you also realize that after the pandemic goes away, not all those countries will continue to do that. Some of them will junk it, go back to the normal style. So you got to look at what the market is going to be, how it's going to be, and get prepared for it. Right? You've also got to look at, you're not the only one giving those Magic Box type products. There are a number of other companies doing that. What are the functionalities that they want? What functionality can I add? Should I add assessment to it? So it's also, how old is my technology? Is it microservices? Was it done before microservices? In which case, for me to upgrade or change becomes very difficult. What's my cost at the back end? If I've got 50 customers, do I have 50 instances on, say, Amazon AWS, right? Do I have, when my cost is really crazy, why can't I make it fewer instances? How much customization? There are lots of questions that you have to answer. And then your strategy comes from there. You're not always right. In fact, one of the things we are grappling with right now is the whole industry, the world is going through a slowdown, or was going through a slowdown. I'm betting that from January onwards, it'll start looking up again. So what happens is you have to start recruiting today if you want those people in there in January, right? Or a little earlier than today. But if that business doesn't pick up, then I've got these people, I'm paying them salaries, they're not generating any revenue. So you've got to take those decisions. And I am a strong believer in not laying off people. What we did at TechSpan when we ran through that problem of the slowdown is that, we had the senior managers in a room and everyone said, we should lay off and all. So I said, is that the conclusion? Then very good. First, who in this room is going to get laid off? And then we'll go down the organization. And obviously no one agreed to get laid off. So they all took a 20% pay cut. And if your senior people take it, if someone's drawing 1 crore, if he draws 80 lakhs, it's not going to change his life at all. But if someone's drawing 20,000 and you lay them off, it changes their life. Right? And so that's how we did it. We've done it twice. Once when the slowdown happened in 2009. And in fact, that was really nice because we did it for VPs and above, and our next level are called principals. They volunteered to take the cut. Right, everyone got their money back because the market came back quickly and we made the profit and all that, but that's a different thing. So that is something I think one reason why the US is getting into a problem is because and one reason why Peter Drucker, who's probably the biggest management guru that I believe, because he came from Hungary, he said that the maximum and minimum salary in an organization should not be more than 16x difference. That didn't go well with a lot of CEOs, right? Because the difference is huge. You read about multi-million dollar salaries and stuff like that. That I think is not, if someone's drawing 5 million, for him to give up one, what is it going to do? Not going to change anything. But that 1 million make a big difference to the company overall. So my logic is that when a person resigns, my loss is his annual salary. So in our P&L, it's not the official P&L that goes out, but internally when we do our accounting, we debit that 1 year's salary of that person who's resigned to that business unit. So business units are encouraged not to let people, because that's what it costs us to get a new person up to scratch when that person left. So I think if everyone starts thinking that way and not looking at people as just numbers, right, I think we'll make a difference, and the loyalty you get and the work ethic you get from them will be very different. So I strongly believe that. I've done it twice. I don't believe in layoffs. Yes, I do believe in performance. If people don't perform, you can let them go, but not in layoffs just because you're trying to save costs.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, wasn't that an enlightening conversation? A heartfelt gratitude to Arjun Malhotra sir, Indrajit Chatejee sir, and Digvijay Choudhary sir for sharing their invaluable insights. As we
Are you
conclude,
closing? No? Anyone in the audience has it? Oh.
As we conclude this insightful podcast session, remember that learning doesn't stop here. Let's continue this profound ideas and reflections by opening the floor to your questions. Your curiosity and engagement will add an extra dimension to our discussion. Raise your hand and our team will bring the microphone to you. Whether you have inquiries about their journeys, industry trends, or pearls of wisdom you are seeking, don't hesitate. Let's dive into this interactive session without delay.
Please keep the questions short, because if you do a long question, I forget what the question is by the time you finish. So, just a suggestion.
Could you stand up and say your question?
Yeah, just stand up. I can hear you.
Sir, I wanted to ask, what do you think is the future of blockchain technology that is coming to our mind day or day?
Yeah, so blockchain is going to become very important. I think it is a way of ensuring something is authentic. Now it's not that it's not cybercrime proof. You can do things with blockchain record, but let's not get into that. It's very difficult and hardly ever done. But let me put it this way. One of the big applications I see, and I know some people, an IIT Kanpur alum who's doing it, is today we don't know what is fake news and what's real news. Right? On WhatsApp University gives you a whole lot of stuff. People then blast it out to other people, and all of a sudden what was fake news becomes believable. So what he is going to do is he is going to put a blockchain attachment to anything that you generate. So if you've generated a picture and someone has photoshopped it, when it comes to me, I will know from that blockchain thing that this is not what the original was. So there are lots of applications like that. Financial area is one big area. Keeping data records that are sacrosanct is another huge area. So blockchain is there to stay. It's just that people haven't got enough applications right now to see what to do with it, but it's not going to go away until something better comes up.
Good evening, sir. My question to you is, sir, Sam Altman, the CEO of ChatGPT, OpenAI, during a recent interview in India, he said he was asked whether India would be able to develop a chatbot like ChatGPT. In response to that, he told it is hopeless for Indians to think so. So, sir, during this AI war, how do you back Indians to crack and thrive the AI market? So, you being the co-founder of a giant tech company like HCL, how do you react to it?
So you're making one assumption here that Mr. Sam Altman doesn't have an ego. He'd be very upset if someone did something better than him. And therefore, he's obviously trying to make sure that people get discouraged to even try to do that. Yes, it's a phenomenal effort. I'm not saying. But I guarantee you in his team, there'll be lots of people who are not Americans who have done it. And if they can do it, they can do it in their own countries. So I don't see that as a problem. And my view is, I don't want to make, in India, if I had to fund it, I don't want a chat GPT. I want to make something that's more specific for what we need in India, that solves my problems, and once they solve my problems, some 150 countries in the world, or maybe more, have problems like mine. They don't have problems like the US. And so, why would I not make something that's more relevant to my economy or my kind of problems than something that's going to be relevant to a developed country or, the G7 or whatever they are. So that's how I would look at it. And these are all, don't read anything into it. It's like, it's bravado on his side. If you ask me when we had the 8C, if anyone could do it, I would have said the same thing. That, hey, we took out our first machine the same month and year as Apple took out Apple One in the US. Right? Well, look where Apple is today, look where HCL is. So, it's not, I would give it any credence, any credibility. I think it's just someone trying to say, देखो मैंने कितना बड़ा काम किया, kind of thing. If someone had questioned him, see, the journalist does it, he doesn't know how to go to the next question to question that credibility. But if he had been talking to a more technical audience, I'm sure they would have asked him some questions which have made him back down from that kind of statement and come up with a more compromised type statement that he talked about. So don't worry about it. You can do it. In fact, if you put your head to it with a group of people, you can make a better product than what they have.
On it, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. My question to you is that while starting a car startup or a company, how do you tackle the short-term needs, but they'll tamper the long-term requirements or your long-term goals of the startup? There can be a conflict in a situation where short-term needs require the attention, but they might tamper the long-term goal for your company.
So let me put it this way. If you're in early stage in a startup, वो तुम कल का धंधा देखो. Don't worry about 10 साल बाद क्या होगा. That is, as they say, क्या भी पलाओ. You don't know, I don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now, 5 years, 2 years from now. You look at your everyday, I've got this, how do I get my cash, how do I take it to the next step, and just keep it going. Once you've got the size and you've got the visibility, then you talk about strategy. In fact, how do I put it? Let me describe how HCL got into services. Right, if you go to IIM Ahmedabad, they have a case study which talks about strategy and Yale. When I went to the US, I went there, so we had gone to the US to sell our hardware, our multi-terminal Unix hardware. And basically, McKinsey had done a study and said there's a gap at that $100,000 range. People with that kind of hardware, like Pyramid and MIPS, were selling it at $1 million. And so we went there to sell our hardware. And within a few weeks, we signed an order from Fortune Systems for $50 million, OEM order. So we are now working how to integrate it with Fortune, et cetera, et cetera. Fortune got acquired by a company called SCI. And SCI wanted to work only on Intel chips. Our hardware was the Motorola 68000 based. So all of a sudden that order became a piece of paper. When this happened, the founder who had gone there, Yogesh Vaidya, called up and said he needed to go in for a bypass. Now, bypass surgeries in 1988, 89 were not that common. And he said doctors told him he can start driving a car in 10 days, which today I know is correct. But sitting in India at that time, we thought he was overstraining himself. So I was sent there to quietly shut down that company. Because we'd taken a lot of mileage saying brain drain, HCL computers going to America, all that stuff. When I went there, I closed the hardware part. To sell hardware in the US, the enabling technologies have to be ported on it. So first of all, I need UL certification. I need to get the databases, in those days, Unify, Informix. I need to get the compilers, Microfocus, COBOL, etc., etc. Now in the US to port databases or compilers, you pay the compiler company or the database company a certain amount. The problem was that we needed their software to be able to talk to our multiprocessor. So the deal we had with them was that I'll give you my engineers free. They'll make the extensions on your software and do the port, but I won't pay for the port, and the IP is yours. So when we got out of hardware, I went there and said, why am I paying for these engineers? I don't need this. So I called them up and said, I'm pulling my engineers back. Every one of them said, we need those extensions, we'll pay you for the engineers. Now in those days, there was no H visa, it was a B visa. So my cost was 3,000 rupees. I was getting $45 an hour, which is 8,000 rupees. So I'm making $5,000 per engineer per month. Right? Hello, that's how we got into services. Much to the disgust of people in India who believed, and rightly so, that engineers are for R&D and programmers are for applications. Right? And having engineers do work for others was not really the kind of thing that HCL wanted. But that was the business. In fact, what happened was I didn't send any information back. Everyone was very happy because no negative news was coming. And then in 1990, remember this guy, what's his name? VP Singh became Prime Minister and there was a recession in India. Rajiv Goswami burnt himself and all that stuff. So what happens in a recession is that computers and automation, office automation get hit first because they are not essential. So India ran into a cash flow problem. They needed cash. I was sitting with about $2 million of cash because I had $3 million of loss from my earlier operation. And so I didn't have to pay tax till I made $3 million. And I had no way of transferring money to India. So I ended up buying an instrument factory in Gurgaon and sent $1.5 million to them. I mean, that's a little bit of history, but that's how it happened. Now, another thing is you go to IIM Ahmedabad and they talk about strategy and how HCL decided to get into that. But that's what people like to hear, so that's the way it is.
Let's have a huge round of applause for them.
So, hi sir. So, being someone who wants to get into an entrepreneurial venture in some way, I wanted to ask what are ways that I can utilize my time, like a lot of free time that I tend to have, being in like after classes or something. So, what is one way to utilize that time? And would you prioritize some sectors like EVs or fintech or some niche sector that you would say I should focus on?
So first thing, two things. One is what's your background? I don't know that.
So computer science engineering.
Yeah, computer science. Second is any of your faculty here, they hear saying you got a lot of free time. If I was faculty, I'd give you a little more homework, but that's see, right. Do you have, how do I put this? Do you have a leaning towards any area?
So probably fintech, like I've been listening to a lot of fintech. Yeah.
Then try and understand what all happens in fintech. There are lots of gaps there, I can tell you that. But you've got to understand the instruments that are available and how they're used and what are the limitations. What are the gaps that people want filled? And then you can look at doing a product or doing services to fill those gaps, right? But you'll have to do your research. You'll have to look at what in fintech, and maybe post your computer science, you'll have to go take a degree in a finance-based MBA type program. Or actually, I think IIT Guwahati and some of these other places run a MS in financial. I know Columbia does it. I know some of the IITs are trying to do it in financial computation. Let me put it that way. And that might be, if you like math, that might be a good way to look at it. Because then you'll immediately get a job in one of these big companies, and you can then understand the whole environment and see where the gaps are, and then fill that gap with a niche product or a big product or whatever. I think that's the way I would do it. Because right now I don't think you understand very much about financial, how trading happens, what is the hedge fund, I mean, how does that whole thing happen? How do they balance their books? So, and you don't have the time right now, in all fairness. You should read up about it, but you don't have the time to understand the fundas, in my view, if you're serious about doing your degree, right? But look for something in that line as a graduate school kind of subject, and then look at getting into that.
Are there any other sectors that you would probably like think of,
So
like
right now,
EVs or somewhere?
Right now, healthcare is a big one. Healthcare is emerging. People are just starting to use technology in healthcare. EVs is very important, but lots of people are going to be very competitive. What we need in India is how to manage heating in those batteries, how to get optimal performance from the batteries. You need to, can I find an alternate to lithium ion? There are people talking of sodium and aluminium that'll make batteries. So again, that may not be, material science may not be the area you want to look at. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work being done there. And I can connect you to some people who are names, and you can check their websites that are doing work in this area. And a lot of them are focused on two-wheelers, because that is the big market in India and not a big market outside India.
I think one of the things he wants to know is like EVs could be a big potential market. Then you talked about healthcare. Healthcare is a big sector. Any other such sectors that you see as going to be the sunrise or the big sectors that India is poised to grow in?
Pharma is a big one. In fact, it already is a big one. And generic drugs, I think India has to get to where instead of only doing generics, they have to do some original drugs. Education is a big one. We've got so many uneducated in the country. In fact, just taking applications and putting them on multiple languages, regional languages, is itself a huge opportunity. Because more and more people are now talking Hindi, for example. I go to the IITs, I find in the hostels they mainly speak Hindi. In my time it was English. And we find that as more and more people are coming in, getting digitally aware, regional languages are going to become really huge. And that's how you'll handle it. In fact, I'll give you a thought. We talk of some huge number of illiterate people in India, right? Now, if I took the World Wide Web and made it a verbal World Wide Web, why would I have an illiterate? Right, so think of that, and today that technology is available. So you could work with them, may put Wikipedia on verbal, so a guy can ask the question on even his feature phone, and he gets it back from there. Well, feature phone might be difficult, a cheap smartphone. And so, there are lots of things. The other thing I was thinking of is this space is so cheap today. You can buy a 4 terabyte for $140. Why don't I give everyone in India a voice mailbox? And you want to talk to anyone, you call their voice mailbox, leave a message, they'll call you back. Google will do it free for you, of course. They'll get some profiles and all which they'll exploit. But companies like that will do it. So there's lots of things that can be done. I mean, as costs come down on digital products, especially disk, it's amazing what all you can do.
So just one quick addition, and this is more for everyone, is There's crazy stuff happening which is cross-disciplinary now. Now you talked about pharma, and what you would just think about is pharma means pharma department and it is with drugs and all of that. But if you know, one of the big applications of AI now is to find out combinations of these drug molecules. He said if you want to make something specific, so that computer science is what is driving drug discovery. Yeah, you would think pharma means, traditionally how you would think pharma, and it's computer science and AI which is able to now churn and give those combinations of multiple. There are thousands of new drugs which are poised to come out now because of applying computer science to pharma. So that is something which realizing those connections and preparing yourself with know-how to be able to deal in this cross discovery is where a lot of opportunities will come.
So I don't know too much about the pharma market, but I believe pharma distribution is not the most efficient in this country. I've had a couple of people come to me and talk about how they can make it more efficient, how there's too many middlemen in the process that can be eliminated, etc., etc. And so I don't know. It's not an area I look at, but people have come and told me that that's a possible opportunity. You might want to look at that, see how pharma products are distributed.
Let's have a huge round of applause for them. Thank you all for your engaging questions and active participation. Your curiosity has truly enriched our discussion today. As we bring this insightful Q&A session to a close, we want to express our gratitude to the audience and our esteemed guests, Arjun Malhotra sir, Indrajit Chatejee sir, and Digvijay Choudhary sir. I'd like to call upon Vansh and Shruti for felicitation.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to call upon Dr. Venkatadri to felicitate Mr. Arjun Malhotra.
Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Arup Rakshit, the Dean of Textile School, to felicitate Mr. Indrajit Chatejee.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to call upon Dr. Nitin Chaube, a professor of the Computer Engineering Department, to felicitate Mr. Digvijay Choudhary. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude this insightful evening, we are thrilled to make an exciting announcement. Prepare yourselves for the grand unveiling of our flagship event, the E-Summit. This is not merely an event, it is a celebration of innovation, entrepreneurship, and the transformative spirit.
Do you recall the grandeur of Innovent during the last 10 years?
Indeed, I do. How could I forget? It was a truly fantastic experience. But I wonder if everyone in the audience knows about it as well. Just to make sure, let's showcase a video and present a few insights about the same.